Now we're in.
All right, we are live. Chris,
Hey,
welcome, Chris.
good to
Good
see you again.
midday. How you doing?
Doing well.
Excellent. We're gonna be
As everybody knows, we're wondering about this storm coming in, but other than that, life is good.
yes, and posterity purposes. They'll remember we were talking about the storm of the century in 2026. So we're gonna talk about stop preparing to launch, start proving you can sell. We're gonna be talking about Chris, your method, the sell now method. We're
Yep.
going to be talking about how founders are taught a certain thing or product managers are taught a certain thing, and it's exactly opposite of what they should be thinking about, how they should be looking at the world.
Yep.
So, ultimately, the uncomfortable premise you wrote here for me, most startups don't fail at launch. They fail long before it by mistaking activity for proof. So, what are
Yep.
some thoughts there when you wrote that? What were you thinking based on your experience?
The biggest thing, a lot of the effort leading up to the launch is preparing for the launch and building the product. In my world, in the life science world, it's a lot around regulatory.
Yep.
But the biggest risk, and we've talked about this many times, is the market risk. That's the market
Yep.
risk. So there's people start selling, quote unquote, selling way too late.
Way,
Uh,
way, way, way too late. Okay, good
Way too
stuff.
late. That's what I was thinking. And it kind of came out of some reflection I was doing over the holidays. That's what I do with all my clients. All my consulting clients that I work with. What I do is I push them to sell earlier and earlier. And the intent is, revenue is important, but that's not the intent. The intent is to de-risk the market side or the market.
Proof. It's a proof. It's like, hey, we got something here we can hold on to. We can pivot off of. It's like there's some interest out there.
Yeah, and it is, honestly, selling is the only real proof. I mean, I lead ICOR for
Mhm.
with UNC, and I'm an ICOR instructor, and I've been a big proponent of customer discovery. When we started doing that, it had a huge impact on the market. But honest to God, it's still customer discovery. Going out and interviewing people and getting their opinions is just their opinions. It's not real market data. The only,
Yep.
the real market data lives in what people are willing to pay you to help them
Yes.
solve. And
Nice
it's
to know versus need to know. I could talk all day about something, but
what
especially
was
if you
that,
give me,
David?
I said nice to know versus need to know. I could talk all day if you give me a $5 Starbucks. Well, now it's got to be a $20 Starbucks coupon in order to get one drink.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you anything. But when the rubber meets the road, and I got to give you a PO for something, there's a whole different level of ball game there related to connection and interest and value. So let's talk about market risk versus product risk.
Yeah.
Founders seem to overemphasize what?
So,
Founders overemphasize what?
they tend to just the focus pre-launch, particularly for founders and startups, they tend to focus on the product development, right?
Yep.
And in the regulated world, the medtech world, they focus on product development and getting through FDA clearance. That's kind of where when I engage with clients, that's where their heads are. That's what they're thinking, and it's you got to build it. You can't sell a product without building it. We can talk more about that.
Yep.
But this overemphasis on product, and it's not so much you step away from product, but man, they delay doing the market work, the sales work, and that's a huge risk. It's a huge challenge, and it's hugely problematic for these companies because when they go to sell, they find out that the market isn't what they thought it was.
Yep.
And that's going to happen 100% of the time when you're
Well,
launching a new product.
number one, it'll drive a lean person crazy. You build all this stuff, and then you don't even vet out if even parts or pieces of it's going to work, because the lean mindset is totally against like overbuild. And you got this whole build, launch, sell concept, and it like you say, it just falls apart for disruptive products.
Particularly for disruptive products, it completely falls apart. Because as soon as when you start selling too late, then you start uncovering your false assumptions and your incorrect hypotheses way too late. If any of that you move it up further in the company development, the product development way. If you move it up, if you look at the risk portfolio, you have 90% of your risk is on the market side, 10% of your risk is on the product side. Any investment in doing this prior is you get a 10 times return on it compared to your investment on product. So anything you can do to move that forward, we do. And we'll talk about it in a minute. But one of the things I was reflecting on the holidays around this is I do with clients, and it basically came out of started with a case study that I've been working with a client on. I know we'll get that to that in a minute, but
yeah, it's interesting. So sometimes, from a very basic level, we're talking about pre-selling. We can also call this discovery selling as well. There's a lot more to it than just the name, but basically you are actually getting the true about if people want this, because you're asking them to give you money for it.
Yes.
You're saying, hey, I've got this. Do you want to buy it? This is how much it costs.
Yep.
Okay, why don't you want to buy it?
And until you actually compensate you for what you're doing, until you actually ask that question for the first time in some way, you're not getting real market data.
That's right.
And I kind of think of it this way, when we went from doing market research, doing customer discovery, there was this exponential leap in the quality of our data. We're actually engaging with someone that can buy and say, what are the challenges you're having? How are you solving them today? How, what are you doing to solve them today? What are your costs of not being?
And I keep going back to nice to know versus need to know. I mean, it's great to talk about, but I don't need that. I'll talk to you all day long about it. It's a great intellectual conversation, and we can talk about the pros and cons. All I think these people would want it. No, I'm not going to buy it. So as you're selling, you're saying, why wouldn't you buy this? What's missing?
That's the next step, Dave. So you have an exponential increase in the quality of your data when you go to actually talk to customers. Well, you have that huge leap again when you actually ask them to pay you for something.
So we're basically going to be teaching. You teach founders, you teach product managers, you teach any type of biz dev person who's doing disruptive product. You teach them the sell now method. So what is the sell now method based on the stuff we've been talking about?
It's the steps. It's first of all, it's pushing this idea of this discovery selling, and I love that term. Instead of execution selling, discovery selling, as early in the company and product development life cycle as you possibly can. What's the earliest point in time we can actually start selling? And it's different. And for almost every product, it's way earlier than companies or founders tend to do.
Oh God, I mean, I've seen people just wait until the whole thing is fully functional before they post it to the website.
And that happens all the time. I've seen that. I've seen that happen and I'm kind of surprised in this day and age that we actually still see that happening. But it's more common than it is not common.
Well, I think you're fighting against a mindset of confidence that, oh my God, I don't want to go out to market until this works. If I go out too soon, then people are going to think it's bad. They're going to think I'm bad. But that's not the concept. As long as you're saying you're discovery selling, they're buying something which we will deliver at a set time period. There's nothing bad about it.
I think there's two things, Dave. One is if you have that mindset, you're thinking that you got to wait until you have the product ready. You first of all, the risk you're creating for yourself is huge. But the second thing is, and I do that, and this is one of the things I work with, is you manage expectations, right? And here's the other thing around that one, David. If you're truly, and I say truly, if you really have a must-solve problem, if you're addressing a must-solve problem for customers, your early adopters, particularly your innovators, want to get their hands on this as soon as they possibly can, if it's truly a must-solve problem. So you're actually doing a disservice to the marketplace by not doing it. But on the other side of it, you've got to manage expectations instead of thinking it. And I think of it this way, and this is the way it works with early customers in this model. They're not so much customers, they're more collaborators. But you manage that expectation. Plus, that mindset, you're only going to do this. You're only going to sell to your innovators and early adopters. Those are the only people that will buy at this stage.
Yeah.
They're of the mindset they want to work with you to figure it out. That's the way their minds work. The early majority and beyond who want all the proof before they buy, they're not gonna opt into this early sales.
Exactly. So it's almost like opposite. If it's an early product, you're giving them all this market information, but it's all this product information, but the other adopters are going to be out there aggressively just testing it, making it work. It's not the spec sheet that's going to get them fired up and excited. And as you talk about this, it's ethical pre-sales. I mean, this is not vaporware. This is not the hustle. This is not the pressure. This is ethical pre-selling, looking for evidence of willingness to pay.
Yeah, and when I'm working with clients, there's huge, and this is kind of a coaching I work with. One of the things I coach them on is being transparent. Tell them, and I even, as part of my sales process early on to test, first of all, I don't want to sell to an early majority and beyond. If I sell to them, I've got a problem because they're not going to go through the adoption process. That's really hard early on when when you have a disruptive product, you put it in the hands of a customer the first time. Not only is the customer learning how to use it, but your company's learning how the customer's learning how to use it. So I don't want the early majority or the late majority or anybody in the early majority or bond in those early customers' sites or the early customers. And I will actually reverse sell them. Once they sell interest, I'll say, hey, listen, we're really looking for some really early adopters, and this product's pretty early on. It's not ready for prime time yet, but here's what we can do with it. I want you to collaborate with me. We're gonna have to go through a learning process together. If you're not ready for that now, then you should wait until we have the commercially ready product.
Yeah.
And so I actually, to test to make sure that an early majority doesn't slip into these early customers, because I really do not want them. I don't even want them in my pipeline.
Yeah.
I kind of push them away and let them pull me back to them. And that's a good indication that you have an innovator or early adopter that's buying from you. And you do it gently, but you do that little push away and you find out because, but the point I'm making here is you really want to be transparent with these folks because you want them to know what they're getting into so that they're in the game with you as a partner.
So now you're really starting to get into the art of it too. So this is when you start looking at the discovery selling process, the unique art of the push and pull, pulling in people that are more innovative, pushing away people that are more spec oriented is part of the skill sets you have to teach in the sell now method.
And you go, and yes, you got to teach it, and sometimes it's almost better not working with professional salespeople because they have a different mentality.
And like you talk about this, the sell now method is ultimately learning to get to the repeatable sales process, and that's where your professional salespeople.
That's the primary goal. The revenue is not the primary. It's get to the repeatable sales. The revenue is the evidence that you're moving in the right direction. Or not, right? If you don't close customers, that's evidence that you got to change and adjust and pivot what you're doing on the sales. But yes, the primary goal here is to discover the repeatable sales process or the repeatable sales motion.
And that's where your professional salespeople walk in, your professional VP of sales. I think you talk about the cowboys, the crazies, or whatever.
Cowboys, rebels, and troublemakers. Yes. But the other thing is you do not want to hand a disruptive product to a professional sales organization without the repeatable sales motion because
they'll fail miserably. That's not what their profession is. Their profession is following a process in order and doing it, executing extremely well at scale and making money. So
that's what a professional salesperson is trained to do.
So we want to talk about proof, Chris. Sell now is there proof? So let's talk about the case study.
Yes.
Give us some context, the moves, the results.
Yeah. So this was I've had it. So it's in the neuroscience space. It's not a regulated tool, and that's it's being used in discovery research for drug development, and basic neuroscience research. That's the technology. And Brian brought me in probably it's about 18 months to 24 months ago. And to tell you the story, so they had one big pharma client. Merck was a client of theirs. And the first task was we wanted to get the, go from one big pharma client to 3 or 4. And so we stepped back and I said, Brian, we don't want to start, we only have one. We want to do some customer discovery here. So we basically went in customer discovery and in the, going to see if the Lillies of the world or the GSKs of the world or the Pfizer of the world, or the Amgens or the Regenerons of the world were, that were doing research, neuroscience research, would be a customer for the product. And what we found in very early on in those discussions is that we really had a true innovator with Merck, and there really wasn't any other innovators, early adopters. It was just too early. The science was too early, and the technology was too early. They were, and these,
and that's what you're trying to do. You're learning. It's a discovery sales process. You're learning and adjusting.
The thing that's interesting is we did customer discovery, but it was actually a version of discovery sales, because if those conversations if they would have started pulling us towards them when we were doing discovery around the technology, we would have let them pull us into a sales, early discovery sales conversation. But that wasn't present in that conversation. So we pivoted and we started finding out where the market entry point, and we found what we call translational research centers. They're kind of, some of them are in academic settings, but they're actually doing real drug discovery. Some of them are not-for-profit. Some of them are outside private settings like the Scripps of the world. And we found they had a different risk profile, and they had a different agenda and intent of what they were doing. They were more discovery oriented and translational research. So they had a piece that was discovery. So they were willing to take some risks, and we got some early pilots, and we've got 10 early pilots.
But you started replacing your free pilots with paid engagements. So you did the shift. You found a deeper interest, and you started shifting to paid engagements.
So we because of where Diagnostic Biochips were at the time, they had opened up some of these conversations. Some of them were early when we were for free. They were installing them, and we started. That's exactly what we started doing. We started shifting those conversations into the paid direction, right? And what eventually came out of 3 or 4 of them became paid clients. The rest of them, we completed the pilots with them, but they became paid customers. So we transitioned those early pilots. And I'm a firm belief, and this is the way I work with clients. You don't do any pilots for free. I don't care if they're a clinical trial for regulatory approval. You don't do them for free. There's always a give and take. There's always something that in those relationships that you get back. And I don't know why you would ever do free pilots. That's my personal opinion about this stuff. But the point is, but because we had 3 or 4 of them, and we have been reaching out to these, we now are starting to develop our repeatable sales process, because we knew who our early adopter was. We started figuring out what the problems are, where we were solving with them. We're figuring out where they were in the market or in the product adoption cycle to figure out what type of messaging that we were going to do. So we're starting to figure out what a repeatable sales process is, because we're actually selling to people.
And it's neat. And ultimately, sales now moves on once the repeatable sales process institutionalizes.
Right.
And that moves into maybe another new product that they're trying to get out.
Exactly. And so we're jumping way ahead. Let's finish up that story, and then we'll get back to
what were the results of your story?
So what we did based on those early pilots, and we started figuring out, we then decided to pre-launch the technology of the sales meeting in November of last year. Now remember, we're gonna have a commercial ready product in probably late Q1, early Q2. That's the timeline. We still have a commercial product. We're still selling the beta product to all these customers we're talking to now. But we decided we're going to launch at SFN, Society of Neuroscience meeting in November of last year. And 6 months prior to the launch, we started doing language market fit. So we started doing messaging. We went back and did customer discovery with our current clients to figure out what to hone in on the language market fit, what language the market's going to respond to. Then we started using that to start testing messaging in outreach and seeing what type of response is. And then as we got closer, we then started using what we were learning on language market fit to lead up to that conference. Here's the bottom line, Dave. So through November, following the conference, we came out with 180 marketing qualified leads, right? That we're continuing, that now we have an internal team that's managing that sales process with those leads. We have the 5 or 6 clients we have the original Merck client. And basically over the last 18 months, we've generated $2.5 million in revenue around those clients and those leads. And by the way, post SFM, we've closed 2 clients post SFM from that meeting already in the last month.
And the biggest piece is if you're using other people's money, this gets you so much more data for an investor in a seed round or your A round to say there's real proof here.
So I think there's a couple. So the big upsides to the sell now method are two things, and people probably will think it's the revenue. It's not the revenue. The big upsides is the market intelligence you gather by actually selling. You're selling to customers and market and the things we're talking about. Who's going to buy and for what reasons, and then you start technical. So it's this sales level data that you get that increases your market intelligence and de-risks de-risks the market side of things. Number 1, 2. The second biggest one, and we're doing this with Diagnostic, is now when we go talk to investors, which Brian's doing. We're not trying to convince them we have a market here. We're showing them. We're demonstrating we have revenue.
A lot of times, investors in seed rounds will invest in a sales process. They'll invest in the repeatable sales process when it's not even there. They'll spend a bunch of money, and it's like it just goes in the toilet. It's even worse than in some cases. That's worse than overbuilding before you have proof. It's like not only are you overbuilding before you have proof, but then you're trying to put a repeatable sales team together when you don't even know who wants it.
So the 2 biggest mistakes companies make are around premature scaling. One is premature scaling the product development. The second one is prematuring the sales and marketing.
The marketing product, and that's what I see a lot of. I see a lot of that side of it for sure.
That's an epidemic out there, David, and it shouldn't be because we know better, but we're not behaving better.
And nobody's talking about the fact that it's really discovery selling. Nobody's talking about the fact that it's a different type of professional with different type of skills than your typical VP of sales who does territory management and coaching sales processes and doing comp plan structure and recruiting.
What you have to have
different skill sets.
The one thing you have to have that disruptive products don't have is a repeatable sales process or repeatable sales method. That's the only way you do those skills. That's what well, first of all, those VPs of sales and their whole sales teams are trained and manage around executing a repeatable process.
Yes, it's all this. Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't have that and you bring those teams in, you premature scale. That means you just took a highly risk situation and just exponentially increased your risk.
Oh yeah, now you got stress, you got burn, you got G&A burn, you got lots of stress, you got frustration, cultural issues. So talk to me, how do founders use Sell Now? How do founders use it?
How do we get so multiple ways. So with Diagnostic Biochips, mainly I'm a mentor and a coach to the CEO and the sales and marketing team there. And
so it's one way that a founder can get access to Sales Now is from a coaching mentoring perspective.
So that's one way, and I'm just working with their team, and we have a great team that I work with there. And then occasionally I've done this for Brian. I'm doing it right now. I'll show you what we're doing, but then occasionally I'll come in and do project work for them. We'll do carve out a specific project there. We're doing one right now for 2006. I'm actually going back and revisiting the pharma and biotech market to see what's moved since we did that work a year and a half ago. And see if there's a niche or see if things that we've learned or if the market's moved enough that there's an opportunity there. And we're going to test that out. That's project work. The other way I work with, I have clients, I do this where I come in and be the fractional head of.
So you can get Sell Now by hiring you in to start putting together a Sell Now team to start executing on the discovery selling process.
So where I would lead the whole thing, where I would strategize, put the strategy together, pull in the right resources. A lot of times, sometimes it's FTEs. A lot of times it's outside contractors that I'll bring in to do certain pieces of it, and then actually deliver the execution of the Sales Now method. And so sometimes I come in and either way, I tend to work very closely. Like with the Diagnostic Biochips teams, I'm in a weekly call with them. I know the whole team. I know the R&D team as well as the sales and marketing team. I know everybody, because all those pieces have to be touching each other.
And there's so much fun when you watch the Rebels Cowboys session to talk about the skills that is necessary for someone to be on your Sell Now team. And that's getting into a deeper success story. Talk to me about the training aspect.
So
training products.
So as I mentioned, I've been an iCore trainer for years. And I genuinely enjoy, and honestly, when I'm working like with Diagnostic Biochips, when I'm working with their marketing person, who frankly is a recent grad that was an intern that is now leading up marketing, but she's a PhD in the neuroscience field. She's not a marketing, but I'm training her all the time. I'm working with her, and mainly what I do with someone like that, they can really execute well if they're a smart, intelligent person. What they don't know is they don't know when they're going down the right path when they're going down the right path, whether kind of the most critical activities to be doing right now today, and then also when it's time to pivot. And we've done all of that. That's what they don't know. That's the 30 or 40 years experience you have to be able to do that. But the internal team can actually, if they're pointed in the right direction and they're given the right tools to do it, they can execute very well. So
that's really, aren't you piloting a Sell Now workshop in March as well, correct?
Yeah, I've recently with my work with UNC, where there's a group at UNC that we're going to do I think we're designing it right now, but it's probably going to be a 6-month Sell Now workshop with their startup companies, the ones that they're taking through their incubator.
Now you're going to be doing some major deep skill development and execution. So basically, this
not only deep skill and execution, but it's actually the goal of it is to drive revenue. Literally close customers with these earlier than they would.
Yeah, you're actually putting it through a workshop to sell and to actually close. It's wild, right? Yeah, and that's really the true return on investment for training, where you actually are producing something at the end.
Exactly. And with this program, we'll do that. And, and the other thing at this stage, and here's the other thing that the listeners need to know. If you don't close, that's valuable as well, because remember, this is discovery. When you don't close, the not action is a learning step, as well as the close. The non-close is a learning step as well as the close. It's all learning at this stage.
That's right. We do a little bit of that in the repeatable sales process, but mostly around pricing or our specific template as it relates to the proposal. But basically, let's kind of finish up here. So basically, what we're talking about is very simple. If the customer won't buy it, time won't fix it. If the customer won't buy it, time won't fix it.
If they won't buy now, that's a Sell Now math. If they won't buy what you have now, time's not going to solve that. And if you think about that, people may say, well, I don't have a product. That's not what people are buying. They're buying a solution to a very specific problem.
That's right.
And it's the problem piece. If they're not willing to pay to solve that problem today, time won't solve that.
And so when you look at anybody in the role that's driving this, the founder, a VP of product, the CRO, you have to stop waiting for the launch. You have to start discovery selling to learn if what you're launching is right or what adjustments you need to make.
If you're at any stage of a company building process, even at the concept stage, if you're not asking yourself and what you can sell today and then doing and applying the discovery sales process to it, you're already behind. It's as simple as that.
Well, Chris, this has been fantastic. Sell Now. Check it out. Discovery sale process. Chris, as a mentor, as a fractional leader, and his training product that we got going on. here in the Chapel Hill area of North Carolina. They can take it just about anywhere in the U.S. and beyond. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, David. It's been fun. And be safe out there.
That's right. Be safe. I agree.